Remember, if you were a fan of Phyllis Diller, remember her craziness? Well, my next guest here to remind us of that lady who perhaps inspired her. Laurie Ayers in the house to talk about, well, Phyllis Diller and more, and you have worn, well, the right outfit. I say that because as we take pictures, we'll describe your wearing. You look like Phyllis Diller there, Laurie.
Well, it's a great compliment when people look at me and say, I thought she was dead.
Well, tell me more because obviously you are here to share, well, your passion and certainly more about Phyllis. First of all, tell me about Laurie.
Laurie's she was a stand-up comedian, corporate world, up until the time that COVID hit in 2020. And then, as with many others, that career came to a screeching halt. Education-wise, I have a background in Homeland Security and criminal justice, which has nothing to do with comedy, but I think that's why comedy has been part of my world for over 30 years, because it was a yin and the yang of that.
You know the importance of laughter and what you get from making someone laugh. I'm going to cut right to the chase. How did you come to, pursue a mission of being a Phyllis Diller impersonator tribute artist?
Well, let me give you the Reader's Digest version. 1980s, I did the first stand-up at the Comedy Den in Grand Rapids. Then I started doing telegrams with Grand Rapids, singing telegrams. Fast forward 30 years, I was still doing stand-up comedy in the corporate world. And then, as we know what happened in the spring of 2020, that came to a screeching halt. So instead of doing DoorDash or trying to find another gig like so many entertainers did at the time, I stumbled upon, I'm sure it was no coincidence, there was a celebrity impersonator industry, community, a whole thing. And I had no idea. It was not only nationwide, but international.
Okay, so you have picked this up and run. We will talk certainly about your national presence, but also perhaps a local presence as well. And I just Googled Phyllis Diller, so I'm going to turn back to you to educate. Perhaps there might be a generation that has no clue who Phyllis Diller is, Laurie.
That was a real eye-opener to me, since I grew up with her, watching her on Laugh-In and watching her stand-up and all of the game show circuits. I kind of assumed everybody knew who she was, especially since she was the very first stand-up comedian who paved the way for women. So I just assumed everybody knew who she was, or they certainly should, which was part of my mission. It's like, if you don't know who this woman is, other than the voice of Bug's Life or Scooby-Doo, I set out on a mission to keep her legacy alive because of the impact she's made on the world.
I'm looking at pictures of her. I'm looking at pictures at you right now. You do look like Phyllis Diller. But wasn't the stand-up, didn't she make fun of her own looks?
She did. She started in the mid-1950s when it was not acceptable for a woman to be in comedy. And she was actually a very beautiful woman with a great figure, but that was not going to go over well. So that's how the clown persona came to be.
You say clown persona? Tell me more.
She wanted to stand out from the crowd, but the wigs, the crazy wigs that she always wore, and with gloves, most stand-ups you'll see. You
have the gloves on.
Have to have the gloves on. Phyllis described it as it's showtime when the gloves go on. And she said, look at clowns. Mickey Mouse clowns always wear gloves. So that was part of her signature stage look.
So tell me, back to Laurie, you make this decision to, I trust, be an impersonator of Phyllis Diller. How do you start?
I actually was doing other characters before that. Since I started with the singing telegrams, I did characters back years ago. But then more recently, I did Diana, Princess Di, when I was younger. Then I flipped and did I Love Lucy for a while, but then I got into a little bit of copyright issues with the family.
Oh, it does get to be to that, because I'm going to start dropping names soon because I know you have a wonderful year ahead of you. But, I didn't realize that, that can happen, right?
It depends. I didn't realize it either. I sure found out. But They said, we're not licensing anymore, and we prefer that you don't make any money off our mom.
But I trust that's been cleared with Phyllis Diller.
Well, she's not alive right now.
Right,
so.
But her thing, I guess, is, she died in 2012, it seems. Yes, lived a long
So
life.
I feel like she has given me her blessing that this is fine to do this. But then, interestingly, after I did Lucy, I cut my hair. It was quite long red hair, so I could do it naturally. But then I got a bad haircut, and I look like Jen Psaki. So
yes,
I actually was able to do Jen.
You did
for a while until she left the White House.
My goodness.
So then it was like, what's next? And then Phyllis, I had people tell me how much I look like her, and the fact that I grew up with her, it just was a natural slide.
So describe what you're wearing now.
Right now, well, I have my signature ankle boots they're very bright with many different colors. The dress I happen to be wearing is kind of a cross between stage Phyllis and off-stage Phyllis, because she enjoyed bright colors, bold, bright colors. This one is more sparkly and gold and silver because she also enjoyed bling.
You do have the bling on, don't you?
Yeah,
yes.
I believe there's 3 necklaces and bobble earrings. And the wig that I have on and the hat belonged to Phyllis Diller. They came from her estate.
Now we're getting deeper into the story for sure. So, do you sound like Phyllis Diller? Do I ask you to?
Well, that's interesting that you should say that because, well, for one thing, nobody will ever be able to replicate her laugh that she's known by. But as an impersonator, I don't really like that word. I like to say being Phyllis, because some people will expect you to be dead on. So there's in the industry, there's lookalikes who don't sound anything alike. There's tribute artists who may not necessarily look like but sound like. And then there's impersonators, and they're all basically just so people know what you're talking about. But I think as I could do the look as a standalone, but I could not do the voice without the entire look. So I believe that when I'm performing, I like to channel her or to embody her. So then I think people are a little bit more forgiving if I don't sound exactly like her, but at least have the mannerisms and the jokes and the content.
And obviously, before I ask about where we could possibly find you nationally and maybe locally, are you trained in? I know we worked together for a project, but are you actually trained in acting in this field, or
not formally? I mean, I guess I could say I've had 55 years of training under my belt. Started, the tap dance at 3 years old, and it's kind of in my blood. It's in my family lineage.
So let's drop some names. What's going to be on your list of things to do this year?
I am working on a couple of tours right now, one with Jerry Lewis. And interesting about Jerry Lewis, just a little quick tidbit, Jerry Lewis and Phyllis Diller died on the same day, 5 years apart.
Because when you say Jerry Lewis, yes, he's passed, but there is a Jerry Lewis out there.
Exactly. And so we are partnering to do a Legends tour. We're going to start in Florida and work our way up to Atlantic City.
Goodness.
On the West Coast, working with Don Rickles and Joan Rivers,
who again the real have passed, but and so there's a whole network out there.
There is, but it's not very big locally. That's why I tend to work outside of West Michigan.
So how does it become locally? I mean, we do have our Laugh Fest. I'm sure you've.
Well, and because I worked in the corporate comedy sector, I'm not in real tight with the bar and the club comedy scene here locally, but I do know a handful of them through Laugh Fest, and I've contacted a couple. There's one comic I know who could pass as Milton Berle, and I said, you have to do this, and I couldn't do that. So I'm on a mission to let's get more people involved.
Okay, so if one's thinking, wow, I've been told I look like Lucille Ball or something as such, where does one start to do what you do?
Well, the good old internet's a good place to just start researching, and there's forums, there's other impersonators, and you just start to find out who will open up and talk to you about the industry.
Yes. And what's life like as a stand-up, Laurie? I mean, you have to, I guess, get used to the claps and the boos.
It's one of the hardest jobs I've ever done. You are asking people to please judge me, and if you don't like it, please scowl and don't laugh. So it's very hard to write the original content, but also to have thick shoulders to just keep on pushing through.
Again, Laurie Ayers with us, Ayers. But if you looked at her now, you'd think Phyllis Diller was in the house. Impersonator, she is being Phyllis. And so let me can I put you kind of on the spot and just, I know you're not going to sound like Phyllis. I won't have you do that, but pretend that we're your audience and take it away, Phyllis Diller.
Well, I'm surprised you even recognize me. I have had more facelifts than I can imagine. My face has been pulled out more times than Jeffrey Epstein's pants. If I have one more facelift, it'll be cesarean. You know you're old when your walker has an airbag, and your favorite drink is Metamucil, and your fantasies involve Bob Barker.
Oh, well, again, all that was just brought back. Not the Metamucil, but the Bob. It's all about timing. It's all about the audience, right? Will our audiences be of mature age, or you find them all out there?
It's very interesting in today's day being a little bit more politically correct than Phyllis was in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So it's going to be mostly the Gen Xers and the boomers who will remember Phyllis. And there may be some younger ones in there who will be introduced to her. But I think most people who show up to a Phyllis show know exactly what they're going to get.
Well, Laurie Ayers, again, Phyllis Diller in the house. What is your call to action for West Michigan? I'm sure I'll give you a little plug. I'm sure you're available for hire and get ourselves to our own impersonator group to get the spotlight.
Exactly. It's twofold. One, I would love more work since COVID hit. It's been kind of slow going, ramping back up. So I work great for conventions, trade shows, spokespersons. But as you mentioned locally, I would love to see more comics say, okay, I've been told I look like so-and-so. How can we do this? And let's collaborate. Let's bring the legends to West Michigan.
But until that happens, you're hanging with Jerry Lewis, Don Rickles. Maybe get a Milton Berle to come along.
Hopefully. I'll have to hit him up again, see if he might be open to it now.
Who else?
Joan Rivers.
Oh, Joan Rivers.
There's a Dean Martin, just the old classics.
Now, are you going to get looks going back out to your car?
I hope so.
Hand them your business card. How do we find out more about you, Laurie?
You can find me at Impersonate Her, just like it sounds, one word, impersonateher.com, and all my social links are on there.
Great. Thank you for your time. Congratulations on carrying on this talent as Phyllis Diller and, of course, as Laurie Ayers as well. Take care, Laurie.